Good evening, and welcome to the Late Night Stories. Settle in and make yourself comfortable. The day is done, and the world outside has slipped into silence. Here, in this warm little corner, only one sound remains: the steady tick-tock of the old grandfather clock. It's the same calm rhythm that has ended so many nights, a gentle reminder that this is the hour for quiet hearts, slow breaths, and soft stories. How are you feeling tonight? And where are you listening from? Share it in the comments. I always love seeing the places our late-night circle calls home. And if the familiar tick-tock brings you a bit of comfort, you're welcome to ring the little bell so the clock can call you back whenever the night feels heavy, and a story might help. Now, breathe slowly. Let the weight of the day fall away. Tonight, I'll be reading a gentle fairy tale, a peaceful story from the Brothers Grimm, but told in a soft, comforting way, perfect for drifting into sleep. Settle in, get cozy, and let your mind soften. This is The Elves and the Shoemaker. Once upon a time, in a quiet little town tucked between rolling hills, there lived an old shoemaker and his kind-hearted wife. Their shop was small, warm, with wooden floors that creaked softly under gentle footsteps. Each evening, a tiny lamp glowed golden in the corner, filling the room with a peaceful light. The shoemaker was patient and careful, always working with love. But as the years passed, things became difficult. One night, he looked at the leather on his table, just enough to make a single pair of shoes. Still, he smiled. He whispered to his wife, "Tomorrow will be brighter. Let's rest now." They blew out the lamp, and the quiet of night settled softly over the shop. While they slept, tiny footsteps tiptoed into the workshop. Soft, light, playful, like snowflakes tapping gently on a window. Two little elves appeared, cheerful and nimble, with bright eyes that sparkled in the moonlight. They climbed onto the table, giggling softly, and saw the leather waiting. Without a word, they began to work. Their hands moved quickly but gently, cutting, stitching, polishing, each tiny motion filled with joy. By dawn, they had crafted the finest pair of shoes the town had ever seen. When the shoemaker awakened, he gasped softly. He couldn't believe his eyes. He placed the shoes in the window, and soon a customer appeared, delighted with the craftsmanship, paying more gold than expected. With the money, the shoemaker bought leather for 2 more pairs. That night, he laid the leather out again and fell asleep with hope in his heart. And just like before, the elves returned. Their little feet pattered softly across the table, their hands moving gracefully like tiny dancers in the warm glow of moonlight. Night after night, the elves worked quietly in the shop. And soon the shoemaker and his wife lived comfortably again. Their home was filled with peace, warmth, and gratitude. One snowy evening, as they warmed their hands by the fire, the shoemaker's wife smiled softly. "I think it's time we thank them." She had noticed the elves always came barefoot, wearing ragged little clothes. So together they made tiny shirts, tiny trousers, and the softest little shoes. They placed the gifts on the table and hid nearby. When the elves arrived and saw the clothes, their faces lit up with joy. They danced, twirled, laughed, their voices light as bells. Wearing their new outfits, they waved happily and slipped quietly into the night, never to return. But their kindness stayed forever in the peaceful little shop. If you're still awake, or drifting somewhere in that soft space between dreams, let's slip quietly into our next gentle tale. This one is another peaceful story from the Brothers Grimm. A soft, comforting bedtime version of The 12 Dancing Princesses. Just relax and let the story carry you. Far, far away, in a quiet and peaceful kingdom, there lived a gentle king and his 12 daughters. Each princess was kind, graceful, and loved more than anything by their father and by the people who lived in the kingdom. Their days were filled with sunlight, soft laughter in the gardens, and long mornings spent reading by the windows as warm breezes drifted through the castle halls. But there was a tiny little mystery. Nothing frightening, nothing dark, just something unusual and gently magical. Every morning, the king visited his daughter's room to greet them and wish them a peaceful start to the day. And every morning, he noticed the same soft, strange thing. Their shoes, 12 little pairs of them, were worn down, as if the princesses had been dancing all night long. But the princesses always smiled gently and said, "Oh, father, we slept through the night, just like always." The king believed them, of course he did, but still the mystery remained. Word of the gentle mystery drifted through the kingdom, carried softly from traveller to traveller, until it reached a young soldier returning home from a long journey. He was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of person who listened more than he spoke. And when he heard the story, a soft curiosity stirred in him. Not excitement, not a craving for adventure, just the gentle feeling that maybe he could help. He travelled to the castle, walking through bright halls lit with golden candles that flickered like tiny stars. The king welcomed him kindly and explained the mystery once more. The soldier listened, slowly, carefully, nodding with understanding. "I ask for nothing dangerous," the king said softly. only patience and a good heart. The soldier agreed, and that evening, as the castle grew quiet and moonlight settled over the rooftops, he sat in a comfortable chair beside the princess's room. The air was cool, lavender drifted in from the gardens, and the soldier felt his eyes grow heavy. But he stayed awake, breathing slowly, listening. Then, just past midnight, a soft melody drifted from the princess's room. Delicate, dreamlike, like moonlight resting on water. The princesses stirred, stretching gently, their movements airy and slow. They slipped on their shoes one by one, and the eldest princess touched the wall. A soft glow appeared, forming the outline of a door. The wall opened to a staircase shimmering faintly like starlight. They walked down, and the soldier followed quietly at a gentle distance. At the bottom, they stepped into a forest. Not a dark forest, but a glowing one. Silver leaves trembled softly on tall, shimmering trees, and the ground sparkled as though sprinkled with tiny diamonds catching the moon. A narrow path led them to a quiet, glassy lake. 12 small boats waited there, decorated with glowing vines, rocking gently, as if greeting the princesses. They stepped inside, and the boats drifted forward without oars, carried by peaceful magic. Across the lake stood a grand hall filled with warm golden light. Inside, musicians played soft melodies, slow, elegant, comforting. The princesses danced, not wildly, not urgently, but gently, as if moving through a dream. Hours drifted by like clouds across the sky, until the music softened and faded into quiet warmth. The princesses returned home just before dawn and slipped into their beds with peaceful smiles. The soldier told the king everything he had seen: the shimmering forest, the glowing hall, and the soft magic that brought joy to the princesses' hearts. And the king, relieved, smiled. He did not close the passage. He did not scold. He only asked his daughters to tell him whenever they yours quiet place to let your experts breathe. And so, life in the kingdom returned to its cognate. Princesses were coping. The king was comforted, and the soldier was thanked for his quiet kindness. And beneath the castle, the forest still glows, the lake still shimmers, and the soft music waits patiently for the next night of peaceful dancing. And now, as your body sinks a little deeper into your pillows, let's drift into another gentle fairy tale. A soft retelling of the story you may know as Sleeping Beauty. In the Brothers Grimm version, this tale is called Briar Rose. A long, long ago, in a gentle kingdom, surrounded by rolling hills and warm sunshine, there lived a kind king and queen who wished for a child more than anything in the world. Their castle was peaceful, filled with soft music, glowing fireplaces, and gardens that bloomed with bright roses and the warm scent of honey. But despite all the beauty around them, their hearts longed for something more, a little one to love. And then, one quiet morning, when the sky was a soft pastel blue, a tiny baby girl arrived. She was graceful even in her sleep, resting peacefully with a small smile curled on her lips. The kingdom rejoiced, bells ringing gently, lanterns glowing warmly, and the king and queen named their daughter Briar Rose. To celebrate her birth, the king and queen invited every kind and wise fairy in the land to give blessings of love, happiness, and peace. Soft harp music drifted through the halls as the fairies gathered around the crib of little Briar Rose. One fairy gifted her a heart full of kindness. Another blessed her with grace and laughter. A third gave her a gentle spirit that would bring joy to every person she met. Fairy after fairy offered gifts of sweetness, gentleness, and peace. When the blessings were done, the castle settled back into its peaceful rhythm. The princess grew, not in noise or chaos, but in warmth, in softness, in love. Every year, the gardens grew more radiant. Birdsong lingered longer in the castle windows, and Briar Rose herself became known throughout the kingdom as the princess with the warm smile and the calm spirit that could ease any troubled heart. She loved to walk through the gardens, barefoot on soft grass, letting the leaves brush her fingertips, listening to the quiet hum of the world, as if it were singing only to her. Then, one afternoon, as golden light poured softly through the castle halls, Briar Rose wandered to a quiet tower she had never visited before. There, in a sunlit room that smelled of dried herbs and warm dust, an elderly woman sat working calmly at a spinning wheel. Her foot tapped slowly. The wheel turned in a smooth, steady rhythm. Briar Rose approached with soft curiosity. "What is this?" she asked, her voice warm, gentle. The woman smiled kindly. "It's just a simple wheel," she said softly. "It helps me spin threads for blankets and gowns and quiet little things." The soft rhythm of the wheel lulled Briar Rose into a calm daze, the way waves lull you on a quiet shore. She reached out, touching the spindle gently, and the moment she did, a warm sleepiness washed over her. A peaceful sigh escaped her lips, her eyes fluttered, and she drifted into the gentlest, deepest sleep. Her breathing was steady, her face serene, as if she had curled up beneath a favourite blanket to rest for a very, very long time. The king and queen found her, their hearts tightening, but only for a moment. For as they watched the peaceful rise and fall of her breath, they knew she was safe, just resting. To protect her sleep, the king ordered roses, her beloved roses, to grow gently around the castle, forming a soft green curtain that guarded the quiet within. Not thorny, not dangerous, just warm and comforting. Years passed peacefully, the roses growing tall and lush, the castle resting like a dream wrapped in sunlight. Until one day, a young prince with a quiet heart heard the old story. He wasn't seeking adventure or glory. He was simply drawn to the peaceful tale of a sleeping princess surrounded by roses. He travelled to the castle, and the rose walls parted softly at his steps. Inside, he walked quietly, each footstep gentle, until he reached the room where Briar Rose slept. The moment he saw her, resting peacefully, warmth stirred in his chest. He sat beside her, not touching her, just sharing the quiet. And in that soft moment, without effort, without magic words, Briar Rose stirred. Her breath deepened, her eyes fluttered, and she woke, as if from a long, beautiful dream. The first thing she saw was the calm, kind face of the prince. They spoke softly, as if they had always known each other. The kingdom rejoiced gently, lanterns glowing warmly, bells chiming softly. Briar Rose and the prince soon walked together through her rose gardens, barefoot on soft grass, laughing quietly as sunlight kissed the petals. If you're still drifting with me, softly resting after the gentle tale of Briar Rose, then let's wander even deeper into the quiet forest of fairy tales tonight. Somewhere between the warm glow of lanterns and the hush of pine trees in the evening air, there lies another story, a lighter story, a kinder story, a story touched with soft, glowing magic. Tonight, we'll let that story unfold slowly, calmly, so you can drift wherever your dreams want to go. This is the soothing bedtime version of The Golden Goose. So take a slow breath in, and as you breathe out, let your whole body soften. Now, settle in. Sink deeper into your pillows and let the story begin. Far, far away, in a peaceful valley shaped by soft hills and whispering forests, there lived a simple woodcutter and his 3 sons. The eldest 2 were strong, confident, and always convinced they knew the best way to do everything. The youngest son was gentle, quiet, thoughtful, and often overlooked. People in the village called him Simple Hans, not because he was foolish, but because he was kind in a way the world did not always understand. Hans saw beauty in small things, the shimmer of morning dew, the slow drift of clouds, the warmth of sunlight resting on old wooden fences. He was the type of boy who paused to help a beetle cross the road, who shared the last piece of bread with a hungry bird, who smiled even on days when no one smiled back. One soft morning, as the sun rose gently over the valley, their father decided it was time to cut wood in the deep forest. The eldest son went first. He walked into the forest with big, confident steps, thinking he knew every path, every shortcut, every trick. But as the trees grew thicker and the air cooler beneath the shade, he met a small, wrinkled old man. The man's eyes were warm, and he carried himself with a soft, quiet dignity, like someone who had walked through many seasons of life. He gently asked, "Could you spare a small piece of bread?" But the eldest son, proud of himself, proud of his strength, told the old man to go away. He chopped wood angrily after that. Suddenly, his axe slipped, and the wood splintered so badly that he could no longer cut a single log. So he returned home, angry, frustrated, and empty-handed. The second brother went next. He also walked with confidence, certain he could do better. And just like before, the gentle old man appeared, quietly asking for a small bite to eat. And just like before, the boy refused him. And just like before, his work fell apart and he returned home with nothing. Finally, it was Hans's turn. His father hesitated, not because Hans wasn't capable, but because he was gentle in a world that often rewarded anything but gentleness. Still, Hans smiled softly, took his modest loaf of bread and made his way into the forest. The deeper he walked, the quieter the world became. Just birdsong and the soft flutter of leaves. And then he saw the old man. The man's eyes were tired but full of a warm, steady kindness. Hans didn't hesitate. He broke his bread in half and handed the larger piece to the old man. The man smiled, a slow, grateful, glowing smile that seemed to warm the air around them. "Well, Hans," he said softly, "because you have given freely, you shall receive freely." He pointed Hans toward a tall old tree with roots like folded blankets and branches shaped by years of wind. "There you will find what you need." Hans walked to the tree, curious, calm, trusting. And there, lying at the base of the trunk, was a goose unlike any he had ever seen. Its feathers glowed softly, not brightly like gold coins, but warm and gentle, like candlelight on winter nights. Hans knelt beside it, astonished, but peaceful. The goose nuzzled into his hand as if it had been waiting for him. Little did Hans know, this gentle creature was about to change everything. And so, early the next morning, the youngest son set off toward the forest, his footsteps soft against the dewy ground. The trees were tall and calm around him, their branches swaying gently as if greeting him with a slow, quiet hello. He didn't carry much, just a small bundle of food, a worn cloak, and a hopeful heart. As he walked deeper into the woods, he felt the world grow softer. Birdsong drifted through the leaves, the sunlight danced across the moss, and the forest seemed to welcome him the way an old friend might. After some time, he came upon a clearing bathed in gentle light. There, sitting on an old tree stump, was a small, pleasant-looking man with bright eyes and a warm, knowing smile. The young man paused, uncertain, but the little man waved kindly. "Good morning," the little man said softly, his voice carrying the tone of someone who already knew the path ahead. "You look tired, and perhaps a bit hungry." The young man nodded, setting down his bundle and offering part of his small meal, a simple piece of bread and a bit of cheese. The little man accepted graciously, his smile widening with a warmth that felt like sunshine after a long winter. "You have a good heart," the little man said, "and because of that, your kindness will not go unnoticed." The young man wasn't sure what he meant, but before he could ask, the little man pointed toward a nearby tree, an old oak with deep roots and golden leaves scattered beneath it. "Cut down that tree," the little man instructed gently, "and you will find something quite extraordinary." The young man hesitated, but something in the man's voice was steady and reassuring. So he took his small axe, walked to the tree, and with slow, careful swings began to cut. The forest stayed quiet, peaceful, as though it were softly holding its breath. When the final piece of wood gave way, the tree opened, not with a crash or a thunderous fall, but with a gentle, glowing reveal. Inside, nestled in a warm bed of golden feathers, was a goose. But not just any goose. Its feathers glowed with a soft, warm light like little lanterns in the dusk. A golden goose. The young man stared in wonder, his breath catching quietly as the creature blinked up at him with peaceful, curious eyes. The little man nodded as if this was exactly what he'd expected all along. "Take the goose," he said kindly, "but treat it well, and it will guide your fortune." And then, as quietly as mist drifting away in morning light, the little man vanished. The young man called out softly, but heard only the hush of wind moving through the leaves. So he gathered the glowing goose into his arms, carefully, gently, and began his walk back toward the path. The goose nestled against him, warm and surprisingly light, as though it carried a bit of sunlight within its feathers. As he walked, the forest seemed to brighten with each step, the air clearer, the breeze softer, the world somehow more hopeful than before. He didn't know what adventures this golden creature would bring, but he felt a calm certainty that his journey was only beginning. And so, with the soft glow of the goose guiding his way, the youngest son stepped toward the road ahead. The youngest son followed the little man through a narrow path lined with soft moss and wildflowers that glowed faintly in the morning light. They walked quietly for a while. The kind of silence that feels peaceful, not empty, just calm. At last, they reached a small, cozy clearing. Sunlight spilled over the grass like warm honey. The air felt gentle, comforting, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. In the very centre of the clearing stood an old tree. Its bark shimmered softly, golden at the edges, as if touched by a quiet magic. "Here," the little man said kindly, "you will find what you need." The young man stepped closer, slowly, respectfully, with the kind of careful wonder one brings to a dream. He placed his hand on the warm, glowing bark. the tree hummed, a soft vibration like the faint purr of a resting animal. He gently peeled away a piece of loose bark. And there, resting inside the hollow of the tree, was a goose with feathers as bright as sunlight and as soft as morning light. A golden goose. Its feathers glowed as though brushed with liquid warmth, and when the young man reached for it, the bird didn't shy away. It simply looked at him with calm, trusting eyes. He lifted the goose gently into his arms. Its warmth spread through him, quiet, comforting, like someone placing a soft blanket over tired shoulders. The little man smiled. "You have a good heart," he said, "and good hearts attract good fortune." The young man bowed his head, grateful, though he didn't quite understand what fortune awaited him. Before he could speak, the little man vanished, not suddenly, not sharply, but softly, like mist fading into morning air. The clearing grew still again. The leaves whispered overhead. The golden goose nestled comfortably in the young man's arms. He held it close and began his quiet walk back toward the village path. The forest felt warmer now, friendlier, as if it approved of the kindness in his heart. Little did he know, this gentle goose would soon change everything. He took a soft breath, letting the calm of the forest settle into his chest. Then, with gentle curiosity, he stepped around the tree. There, nestled between two roots, curving like protective arms, was a small nest. And inside it, a goose. Not an ordinary goose. Its feathers glowed softly, a warm golden shimmer like moonlight moving across rippling water. Every tiny movement it made sent little glints of gold dancing through the clearing. The young man froze, not in fear, but in awe, a deep, reverent kind of wonder. The goose looked at him, calm and unafraid. Its eyes were gentle, almost knowing, as if it had been waiting for someone exactly like him. Very slowly, very softly, he knelt beside it. "You're beautiful," he whispered. His voice trembled a little, not from fear, but from the feeling that he had just stepped into a piece of magic that didn't want to be disturbed. The goose tilted its head, a quiet acknowledgement, before spreading one wing. Underneath, resting against the soft feathers, was a single golden plume. The young man hesitated. Something about the moment felt sacred. But the little man behind him spoke softly. "Take it," he said. "You have earned it through kindness and a gentle heart." With slow, respectful fingers, the young man lifted the feather. It was warm, warmer than any normal feather should be, like holding a small, glowing ember that didn't burn. And then, something extraordinary happened. The goose rose to its feet and gave a single, soft honk. Not loud, but almost musical, like a tiny golden bell. Its feathers shimmered brighter and brighter until it seemed wrapped in a soft halo of light. Then, with a gentle flap of its wings, it stepped toward the young man and nestled against his leg. A gesture of trust.
The young man smiled. A slow, warm smile that softened his whole face. "Would you like to come with me?" he whispered. The goose nudged his hand, a simple, clear yes. He gathered the magical creature into his arms, careful, gentle, grateful. And the warmth of its golden feathers spread slowly through him, relaxing every muscle, every thought, every worry. When he looked back, the little man was already fading into the shimmer of the trees. "Use your gift well," the little man said, his voice soft as a breeze. "And remember, kindness brings more magic than strength ever could." Then he was gone. The young man held the goose close, feeling its calm, steady breath, and began his slow walk back home, not knowing yet just how far this golden gift would take him.
The goose continued to watch him with those calm, golden eyes. And the young man, still kneeling in the quiet forest, felt a gentle tug in his heart, as though the world itself was nudging him forward. Very carefully, he reached out his hand, not quickly, not boldly, just soft and respectful, the way someone approaches a delicate dream they don't want to disturb. The golden goose let out a quiet rustle of feathers, but didn't move away. It dipped its head, almost like a nod. And in that simple gesture, the young man understood. They were meant to travel together. He gently slid his arms beneath the bird, lifting it with care. To his amazement, the goose was warm. Not hot, not glowing like a burning ember, but warm, like a blanket that's been waiting for you. As he held it close, its feathers brushed against his hands with a softness so comforting it made his whole body relax. He whispered, "Don't worry, I'll take good care of you." Somewhere deep inside, he felt the words weren't just a promise to the goose, but a promise to himself. With slow, steady breaths, he stood, cradling the golden goose as gently as one might hold a fragile hope. Then, with the forest quiet around them and the sunlight softening into late afternoon, he began walking toward the distant road, the dusty path that led to the village and, beyond it, to the king's grand palace. The goose shifted slightly in his arms, nuzzling its warm head against his chest, as though reassuring him that the journey ahead, no matter how strange, would be guided by something gentle and good. The young man smiled, his steps light, his heart full. He didn't know yet what adventures awaited him, or how this glowing creature would change everything. But he walked on, one peaceful step at a time, carrying not just a golden goose, but a quiet, growing sense of magic. And together, they left the forest behind. The young man's hands rested gently along the golden goose's back as he carried it toward the edge of the forest. Each step felt calm, slow, unhurried, as if the forest itself wanted to savor this quiet moment with him. But he didn't notice that with every step he took, a faint shimmer followed, a soft little trail of golden light left behind by the goose's feathers. When he stepped into the next clearing, he found a small cottage, with a wooden bench out front, and a girl sitting there, looking bored and restless. She spotted the goose immediately. Her eyes grew wide. "Is that real?" she whispered. The young man nodded, holding the bird a little closer. But before he could say anything else, the girl, curious, careless, and a little too bold, reached out to touch one of the golden feathers. The moment her fingers brushed the goose, they stuck. Firm, secure, completely unable to pull away. The girl gasped softly. What's happening?" The goose simply blinked, calm, unbothered, as if this sort of thing happened all the time. The young man sighed gently, not upset, not surprised, just accepting. "Well," he murmured, his voice kind and warm, "I suppose you'll have to come along." And so the girl had no choice but to follow. He continued walking, carrying the glowing bird, while she, still stuck to one shining feather, shuffled behind him with tiny, uncertain steps. And though she tried to hide it, there was something soft growing in her expression, something like wonder. The goose let out a soft, soothing coo that vibrated gently through the young man's arms. It seemed to be saying, not with words but with warmth, "Kindness brings company." As they approached the edge of the next village, the sun dipped lower, painting everything with a warm, dusky glow. The young man smiled quietly. He could feel it. His journey was only just beginning. The strange little parade continued down the road, the young man in front, carrying the golden goose. And behind him, the curious girl still stuck to the feathers. And behind her, everyone else who tried to poke or grab the shimmering bird along the way. They formed a long, wiggly line, a line of people who had acted without patience, but now had no choice but to move gently, slowly, carefully, together. By the time the young man reached the gates of the kingdom, the guards stared in disbelief. They hurried him inside to meet the king, a weary ruler whose daughter, the princess, had not smiled, not once, in many, many years. The king had tried everything: jesters, presents, musicians, parades, but nothing ever sparked even the smallest smile. So he had declared a challenge. Whoever could make the princess laugh would be given a great reward. And when the young man walked into the courtyard leading that long, clumsy chain of people, all stuck together, the princess looked up. Then a tiny sound escaped her, a breathy little giggle, and then she burst into warm, bright laughter. Not mocking, not cruel, but joyful, pure, unguarded joy, like sunlight breaking after a long storm. The king stood speechless. Then, slowly, his face softened, and he stepped toward the young man. "You have done what no one else could," he said quietly. "You have brought my daughter's laughter back." The young man bowed, humbly, still holding the golden goose in his arms.
The king smiled. A reward is yours, anything you choose. But the young man shook his head gently. I want very little, Your Majesty, he said softly. Just a small place to live, a warm bed, and maybe a corner of land where I can care for this goose and live each day in peace. The king studied him, noting the kindness in his eyes, the calm in his voice. And then he nodded. A good heart, he said. That is the rarest treasure of all. And so, the young man was given a cosy little cottage on the edge of the royal gardens, a place filled with sunlight in the mornings and soft, cool breezes in the evenings. The golden goose lived peacefully there with him, spreading warmth and quiet magic through their little home. The princess visited often, not because she needed to laugh, but because she enjoyed the gentle company of the kind young man and his shimmering friend. Over time, a soft friendship grew, and with it, a gentle happiness that lasted for the rest of their lives. The people who had once been stuck to the goose's feathers, they eventually came unstuck, a soft little pop, one by one. And though they were embarrassed, they learned something valuable about patience, humility, and thinking before acting. And as for the young man, he never sought riches or fame or power. He simply lived each day with kindness and gratitude and quiet joy. And many people said that if you walked by his cottage at sunset, you could hear the faint rustle of golden feathers and the gentle, contented sigh of someone who had found exactly where he belonged. And now, with the golden goose safe and the kingdom peaceful, and the young man resting in his warm cottage, you can let your own breathing slow down too. Feel your body settling, melting deeper into comfort, and drifting quietly into a deep, restful sleep. Good night, and sweet dreams.